Coming in at number 11 is the 2022 track. The track's problem wasn't really what it was trying to do, it was more so the execution. I can list a problem with almost every straight. The first straight was weirdly sized, causing the straight to have very low flow. It was also super short, which limited the action and passing opportunities you usually see in the first straight. The second straight was okay, but only featured two doubles, which weren't the smoothest. It did allow people to pass in the second turn, however. The pseudo third straight had no flow and no opportunity for passing. It also acted as a speed bump with how it slowed races down. Because of the nature of the third straight, the third turn also slowed everyone down and had no good way to pass anyone else. The pro side of the fourth straight is actually decent, smooth and good flow, and fast. The amateur side is a bit worse. Some hills are too close. It dog legs, which makes it ride pretty awkward. It's not like a rhythm section at all, but it is satisfying to do well. The last straight is pretty standard, just a tabletop. Overall, the track fails in too many places and doesn't encourage fun riding, so it falls at number 11. Almost a decade later, we have 2013 at the 10th spot. The track has a decent layout on paper, but the actual track ends up being pretty rough around the edges. The turns really don't allow for many moves either. First straight is pretty generic, double and a step up. The second straight is probably my favorite. While the hills look unnecessarily steep and not very flowy, the hill layout and length of it make up for that in my opinion. Third straight is very similar to the second straight, just not as original. It's a slightly better rhythm section layout-wise than most, but once again, the actual design of the hills themselves doesn't make the track fun to ride or watch. It also seems the dirt quality is just not very high. It should probably allow a lot of slide outs and turns. Coming in a full decade later is the 2023 track. We have 2023 at 9. This track is somewhat inoffensive, but it's very generic and not too exciting. The first track has an original design which is somewhat effective, but it's mostly flat, which lowers the excitement and significance of new lines by a lot. The second straight is really awkward to ride on and the hills don't feel amazing. The pro side is good though, despite being slower. The rhythm section is probably the worst part. It's very difficult to ride due to its size and how close each hill is to each other. It's made 90% of rollers, which is pretty boring. The last straight is nothing really either. It's just a double into a step up. It's okay for the most part, but lacks anything dynamic or fun to really allow it to go higher. The 2017 track has almost the exact opposite of 2023. While 2023 suffered because it was too generic and boring, 2017 suffers because it tries to be too creative. The first straight is probably the most tame. Like most tracks, it's a double into a step up, although this is slightly different because it seems to be a bit larger than normal. Still pretty standard though. The second straight is where they start trying to spice it up a little. It starts off with a double, and then almost instantly into a roller, and then almost instantly into a triple. Throwing a roller into the mix during a second straight is not something tracks do very often, and especially on this type of straightaway where everything is so close and quick. While I do really like the idea, its execution is poor. Where riders can and should get pedaling before the roller, it lowers the flowiness of it a lot. The hills aren't smooth enough for it to be perfectly flowy either. On to the third straight. The amateur side is pretty generic. A lot of rollers, throwing the occasional double, and that's about it. The pro side is a bit more interesting though. It's two sand-filled doubles, even complete with an umbrella and some beach towels. That goes into two deep rollers into a tall double. And all of this dog legs very heavily, by the way. Super unorthodox straightaway. I mean, for the past 3 years, all we've gotten in the way of pro sets is double step up. I do like the creativity, although the straight doesn't seem to have much flow and there's no way to pass without the rider in front of you making a large mistake. And even if that happens, there's a good chance he slows you down too, because everyone has to ride the exact same line to keep up. Great creativity, good ideas, okay execution. Fourth straight is amateur side only. It has a double step up, which is okay. Slightly better than the fourth straight in 2024. The last straight continues the dog leg theme with a curved camel, which while looking interesting is awkward to ride and once again forces people to take the same line, although not as egregiously as on the pro set. Overall, this track took creative liberties first and actual good riding second. Unlike the previous tracks on the list, the Grand's 2021 track's problem isn't that its execution is poor or anything. The only problem is that it's just too simple. The first straight is kind of original, adds a double into a step down, which is interesting, and then a step up into one. The second straight is the most original by far, with a step up into a step down, large double. But after that, it's pretty normal. A basic rhythm section with a ton of rollers, standard last straight too. This track would probably place lower on the list if it didn't flow well. This track's one redeeming quality is that even though the track is somewhat basic, it's well designed and fun to ride and watch. However, due to its aforementioned problems, it still has to land at number 7. 2016 track is probably the one that had the most potential. Really cool starting hill where it flattens out before dropping into an even more. 16 track is probably the one with the most potential. Really cool starting hill where it flattens out before dropping into the standard big double into one. Second straight looks bad, but it seems like it rides decent. Lots of room for pedals and quick lines despite the hills being clunkily made. Third straight is slightly above average, but nothing special. Just a couple rollers and the occasional step up. And the last straight is pretty standard too, but it gains a lot of points for having two hills instead of the standard one. Can't tell if I like the Pro or not. It looks a little floaty, but it does seem pretty fun to ride. All in all, the track had potential to be really good with slightly better execution. Maybe a few more days of working on the track would have bumped it up a spot. Honestly, the 2019 track is really similar to the 2016 track, just with a few changes. First, I'll go over what's the same. The Pro set is almost entirely the same, except the second double is slightly larger. Third straight is the same dogleg and pretty similar obstacles, as to be expected with the third straight. The fourth straight is very similar as well, although the main difference. Unlike the previous tracks on the list, the Grand's 2021 track's problem isn't that its execution is poor or anything. The only problem is that it's just too simple. The first straight is kind of original, as a double into a step down, which is interesting, and then a step up into one. The second straight is the most original by far, with a step up into a step down, large double, but after that it's pretty normal. A basic rhythm section with a ton of rollers, standard last straight too. This track would probably place lower on the list if it didn't flow well. This track's one redeeming quality is that even though the track is somewhat basic, it's well designed and fun to ride and watch. However, due to its aforementioned problems, it still has to land at number 7. I actually forgot to write a section for the 2024 track, but seeing as I was at this track and this is actually my GoPro footage, I should be able to just talk about it. Overall, the track's pretty decent. The first straight is pretty generic with a double into a triple, I think. The second straight's really fun. It has a lot of floaty hills that you can jump over, although it's not the fastest, and it doesn't allow the most passes. The third straight's weird. It has this really awkwardly sized double here into a step up, double step down type thing. Goes into 4 rollers and then a huge step up. That's pretty fun to jump. The Pro set's pretty standard, just 2 doubles. It has this weird fourth straight in between thing that's a lot better than it was in 2022. And the last straight's pretty standard. Overall, I mean, the track's pretty decent. It's fun to ride, but it's not the most exciting, it's not the most original. Doesn't do anything crazy good, but doesn't do anything crazy bad either. One thing I didn't like is how punishing the track was, though. If you make one mistake, it's kind of over for you, just because of how technical you have to take each straightaway. If you don't do something properly, you're going to lose a lot of speed, and that's just, you can't lose a lot of speed at Grands. But overall, I think this comes in at number 7, if I'm correct. No, this actually comes in at number 5. The 2015 track has one of the most creative first straights I've ever seen. It's a fairly large camel into a step table. The second straight is a slight dog leg with 2 doubles going into another camel with a really large hump. Into a long triple going into the second turn. The rhythm section is pretty standard, but every few rollers they change it up by throwing a step up into the mix. The last straight is fairly standard as well, but a bit larger than normal. It's a good track, but the actual quality of it doesn't look too high. It doesn't have a lot of opportunities for passes. It doesn't seem like it has a very grippy surface. So for those reasons, it is at number 4. At number 3, we have the 2020 track. The 2020 track is a really solid amount better than the previous one. The first straight is a large step up into a step table. Not the best first straight I've ever seen, but it gets points for being big and original. It has one of the best second straights I've ever seen. It's got a double into another double on the amateur side, into a step up, into another double. The pro side looks pretty fun and very floaty, and as you can see, creates a lot of action. Every hill looks pretty well spaced out with a lot of room for pedals in between as well. The rhythm has this, let me pause it. The rhythm section has this weird thing where it goes, there's a normal roller, but then there's also a diagonal one. That's something you don't really see at pretty much any track, and as you can see, it creates a lot of action on the track. The rest of the rhythm's pretty standard with just some tables and doubles, and the last straight's just a double. It's a lot of points for the creativity in the second straight, although I do wish the material they used was a little better. I do wish the track was a little less dusty. I may have lied earlier about the 2015 track having the most creative first straight. It's absolutely this track. The 2014 track brings back the roller step down thing on the starting kit, which I enjoy, which is a design I haven't seen before. We're watching pros in this race, so they all take the pro set. It's really tall, and look at this. Goes into a roller, big double, goes over a camp. These are pros racing, so they all have to race the pro set. It's got 2 really large doubles, which is fun to watch. Goes into a roller, and then a berm jump, which you do not see very much at Grand tracks, to a large turn into another, like, straightaway jump, I suppose. This goes into a really large third straight, which transitions back to the amateur side. For once, it doesn't just feature rollers. The last straight's pretty standard, nothing special, nothing of note. Overall, this track gets a lot of points just for the second straight. It just has a design you do not see very much. I mean, berm jumps are rare enough at USA BMX, but into a straightaway jump with so many just like different winding paths, you just don't see that very much. Overall, the track just did so much more on such a larger scale, it deserves the number 2 spot easily. Finally, coming in at the number 1 spot is the 2018 track. For how much I've been valuing creativity and the scale of the track, this track tones it down a bit, but it does everything perfectly. It starts with a double into a step up. Nothing insane, but neither hill acts as a speed check, which a lot of tracks accidentally do. This second straight is one of my favorite ever. Let's just go over the layout first. Step up, small double, large triple. The way the straight flows is second to none. Just watching you can see it's fun to ride. The pro sound the third straight is very standard. Normal double into 2 large doubles, and a roller. The roller on the last part of this pro side, the roller is the last hill on the pro side before it transitions back into the amateur side, which it does transfer into the only part of the track I don't like, which is a step up double, which is deep enough to be a fairly significant speed check, as you can see here. It's just not very fun to ride, doesn't look very smooth, doesn't allow a lot of passes. The last straight's pretty standard, just a roller into a tabletop. The amateur side of the third straight is fairly normal, but interesting still. Step up drops down into rollers for the rest of the straight, but the rollers have elevation changes and even end up mimicking other hills, like one part of this which flows like a camel would. Overall, the track isn't the flashiest, but what it does really well. And it gets points for being fun to ride and watch. It promotes a lot of move making as well. I mean, right now we're watching 2018 USA BMX Grand's GoPro POV. BMX is not a very large sport, but this has 3.5 million views, which is just a ton more than pretty much any other BMX video ever has. I mean, even the live streams for this only get like 20,000 views, maybe. So you can tell the quality of it just by how popular it is. But that's the video. Let me know what you think of my list, and goodbye.